Urartu in the Agridak Valley. In the 2nd BC, establishment of tribes unit having own chieftains continued in the zone of dwelling of the tumulus cultural owners. The written sources of the period of Urartu occupations in the Agridak Valley till the Sevan Lake specify that separate districts and these regions were managed by own small rulers. Urartu stayed a period and frequent in zone of the Van Lake in eastern Anatolia in the 8th centuries BC. Since that period, the Urartu kings committed military campaign in northern direction and reached the Sevan Lake. This region named Etoiki in the Urartu inscriptions covered a huge territory from the banks of the Aras River in South Gyumri and Agridak Valley and to the basin of the Sevan Lake in north. Probably the Urartu people meant almost the entire Transcaucasian territory under Etoini County. It's assumable that Etoini connected various political formations having own rulers. Ishpuini, the Urartu king 825-812 BC, and Minwa, his son 812-803 BC, occupied in north the land of Ueteruki, Lusha and Katarza tribes with helps of the Etoini kings. Etoini inhabited the zone of Gyumri, former Lelinakan. However, the Etoini kings were thrown back and the territory of the mentioned tribes was robbed and a lot of men and women were taken prisoner and various kinds of cattle were stolen. Subsequently, Minwa committed campaign to zone of the Agridak slope inhabited by Irakua tribe and Lukiane, its capital located. Minwa constructed her installations as a base for progressing to the regions behind the Aras River. It's assumed that the fortress was constructed in the region of Bashpula village and distance 5 kilometers from Dashpurun on the northern slope of Ararat mountain. In the second half of 9th century BC, the Urartu kings committed military campaigns to the region of the river Aras with robbery purposes and constructed their fortifications for the protection from attack of Eteonians as well as for a further attack in northern direction. Eteonians, Don kings helping to their tribes in the region of the Aras River exposed to the Urartuans' assault. Suddenly, these small state formations in Etoini not accumulated in a unique scenery could not stop the Urartians' movement to the north with on military raids. This progress to the north particularly strengthened during reign of Argishti I, 786-764 BC. In the second year of own ruling, Argishti first continued on campaign and reached the Igani country, the region of the Chalder Lake, and came to the Ryahu country in northern direction from the present Gyumri, future Leninakan, as well as the Puni and Eturiki countries located nearby. This campaign resulted in occupation of the Lusha, Katarza and Glutaka countries. He dethroned the king of Lusha and obliged the king of Igana to pay tribute. They specified small countries located in the zone of modern Gyumri. Argishti directed his next campaigns towards the Ararat Valley and reached the Sevan Lake. In the third year of own reign, Argishti first occupied in the Agridak Valley the Abilianiki, Anishtirgaya and Kwarzanu countries and passing through the Etuini countries reached the Uduri Etuini countries. In the fifth year of own reign, Argishti first occupied the Kiekunik city and reached Alushti city. This fact is proven by the inscription discovered close to Urdako village located northeast of the Sevan Lake. The Uburda country together with Royal Urdia city as well as the Wishushuni and Kahu countries appearing located in the Agridak Valley also was occupied the same year. He returned with a lot of loot. Judging by the inscriptions of Argishti, first discovered near to the Ganj Luja and Gulujan, villages close to the Gyumri as the Urartuans occupied Irdauni city to the Shkuli in Ryaku country as well as the Ribana city was Kuliyani country and the Irevan region they occupied Uliyani country with Darani city. Argishti first commenced construction activity in the occupied countries. Remains of their ancient fortification named as Erebuni. Possible readings are Irepuni and Irbuni, very dark on the Ganla Tapa near to Irevan city. This fortress was constructed by Argish I for separation of the inhabitants of the hostile county Etuini. Judging by the inscription, Argish himself named this fortress Irpuni, but not explained in Urartu language because the essence of the name Irpuni was includes any local word. It's known that the Urartu kings named the newly constructed fortresses with the names of either gods or kings. Argisht constituted the name Argishtunili fortress constructed on the hill near the present Kurdukli. According to the inscription, Argishtuhinili was constructed in the hostile Asa country where Argisht laid a channel. Thus, during the reign of Argisht I at the beginning of the 8th century BC, Urartans reached during occupation the reign of the Seven Lake and constructed two big fortresses in the Oridak valley named Erebuni and Argishtukili. The former was constructed for protecting from the local inhabitant, and the latter was envisaged for realization of economical activity. Occupations by Argisht I resulted in fortification of Urartans only in the Oridak valley. The campaigns committed by Sarduri II, his successors, 764 and 735 BC, were directed to the non-occupied regions of the Chalderan Lake, Gyumri and Sevan Lake. In the region of the Chalderan Lake, the Urartans occupied the Olganu country together with its kings included to the Etuiki region. The Iriyaki country was exposed to assault of Urartans several times in the Gyumri region. Here Sarduri II conquered the royal Eriawini city of the Uiteruki county. In the middle of the 8th century BC, Sarduri II committed a campaign to the Oridak valley where he destroyed the Aboloniki country but spared the king Morini in condition of tribute payment. The campaign committed by Sarduri II was directed against the Etuine and Leko countries. The campaign testified that this part of the Etuine country, possibly named as Leki, had fortress towns with own kings. Thus, there were town-states in the Agridak valley as well as in the other places of Etuine, and it proves the early period of state establishment. In the inscription of Sarduri II, the conquered towns are called in consequence of Edia town, Royal Abiyana city, Irua town, Royal Irkua city of the tribe chieftain, Irua town, Royal Ewarde city of the tribe chieftain, Ewan Puyinaku, the city king, but spared him in condition of tribute payment. Thousands of people and cattle were stolen in these towns. Sarduri II committed own military actions in Sevan region. In the eastern bank of the Sevan Lake were the Uelikuni country, located the Urartian king Wan Murini. About 10 years later, in 742-741 BC, during the recurring campaign of Sarduri II to Uelikuni, the king of this country, Nijani, obeyed to him and began to pay tribute to the Urartu king. However, Sarduri occupied 22 fortresses in the battle and took men and women to Urartu. It proved that the people inhabiting on the bank of the Sevan Lake used to construct fortresses. In this region, Sarduri II conquered the royal Tuluki Katiyu of the country belonging to the Luekuku, reigned by Tunabula, carried off together with his people. The Urartian king's inscription was discovered near the Aduyaman village. He notes here that they reached the Uduri Etuini country. Sarduri II won the kings of the Uduri Etuini countries, Arkukini, Lueruni, Kamanu, the Adakune, Shmua, Kwalbanu, Kuna, the Tirani countries. 20 fortresses and 120 settlements also were occupied. Suddenly he committed devastations and ravages also here. Rusad, the successor of Sarduri II, 735-714 BC, continued on conquests in the region of the Sevan Lake. He won the king of the Uelikuku country and expelled him out of the country. He praised himself regarding conquest of 23 countries, some of which, like Adakune, Uelikuku, Lueruku, Arkukine, located in one bank of the lake, and the rest ones like Urkumelu, Shanatuanim, Ternunshayinim, Rushayinim, Aryanin, Zamani, Irkimatarni, Elani, Erualtiani, Aidimanani, Kuryanini, Alziradu, Priyanini, Shilani, Uidianu, Atizani, Eryani, Azamirunini, situated on the other one on the slope of high mountains, and constructed a fortress there devoted to the god Tisheb. Later, Rus's II 685 BC also constructed a fortress named Teshabani near to Irevan on the hill called Girmizitapa. The Teshabani fortress, constructed in the aqueduct plain, was the regional administrative center of Urartu. Rus's II commenced to construction activity in the Kwarlini valley between Girmizitapa and Ishkilsa, and laid a channel through the Ildaruna river. These occupied districts behind the Araz River remained belonging to Urartu until its subjugation by Mudia at the end of the 7th century BC. The ethnic composition of the inhabitants of the countries behind the Araz River. The ethnic composition of the Urartuan inhabitants was heterogeneous. There existed a tribal unit named Urartu in south from the One Lake at the end of the 2nd century, and this tribal unit established the name Urartu. The meaning of this geographical term is not determined yet. The name Urartu first was discovered in the Assyrian inscriptions. It's not of Urartuan origin. Probably the name Urartu is Urartu of the local origin. It says, basing upon the ancient lexical analogies, offered the meaning Aha country for Urartu. This meaning is precise if we consider that Urartu is a mountainous country. Unfortunately, hitherto the Turkic linguist factor was not involved for interpretation of the ancient toponymies and chronomies, and this fact caused a significant gap in etymologization of the ancient toponymies. On this background, the name Urartu probably consists of two, Uri meaning height and Art meaning mountain plateau. Urartu means plateau with height. The component Atri in the name Urartu acts as the methods of the form Artu in the name Urartu, and it's specific for the phonetic transposition in the Turkic languages. In the Babylonian versions of the Persian inscription, the name Urartu is specified as Urartu, and it may be established from Uralt or Uralt forms. In this case, the name has a phonetic modification of the sound RLSH, and it's also specific for the Turkic languages. It was mentioned above that some parts of the regions occupied by Urartuans on the bank of the Sevan Lake is specified in inscriptions as the Uduri Etuyeni country. Judging by the inscriptions, Etuyeni covers a spacious territory from the region of present Gars and Chalderan Lake in the west to the Sevan Lake in the east. Uduri Etuyeni country is mentioned only in 3 inscriptions belonging to Argish I and Sarduri II, and specifying the kings of the Arkukuini, Kamaniu, and Lueruini tribes. It leaves an impression that the Uduri Etuyeni land located oppositely to or behind the Etuyeni country. This circumstance causes a thought that the word Uduri in this name has no lexical meaning, but it's a common noun specifying the location of the countries in relation to Etuyeni. Such interpretation, another one, is unavailable for the context. Grant to the word Uduri the meaning near, oppositely, behind. There's a word containing such meaning in Turkic languages. They have a word Uturi Udurin, various forms meaning in front of, oppositely. Subsequently, Uduri Etuyeni means a country opposite to Etuyeni. Later, Rusa first occupying the Sevan Lake region had not appeal the name of the Uduri Etuyeni country, but divides the districts included to these countries. Most of them is not mentioned before it, together with their kings unnamed, into 2 parts, the kings in one and the other bank of the lake. Thus, the ethnic composition of the inhabitants, both of Urartu itself and Etuyeni with Uduri Etuyeni, had Turkic ethnothers inhabiting here in the period of the considered archaeological countries. The tribal name Kamalna, attested in the Etuyeni Uduru country, is possible for identification with the name of the Kuman tribe of the cuneiform sources belonging to 30th century BC. These tribes later having known the Kuman ethnonym attested for meaning the Turkic ethnothers inhabited in the north of the Mesopotamia and the territory of the ancient Subartu country. The Kuman ethnonym is etymologized in the meaning of fair-haired, blonde, etc., basing upon the Turku word meaning fairy white, light yellow. According to the Chinese sources, the late Kumans were blue-eyed and fair-haired. It's notable that blonde and fair-haired people existed also among the ancient Sabirs, able to be considered as proto-Turks. According to the purchasing documents and etymology of names, the Kudis, neighbors of the ancient Sabirs and Kumans, also were blonde Turk ethnosis. Considering the outward similarity of the name of the Kamauni tribe with the Kuman ethnonym, the ephonym possibly is expression of Uo, or the dialectal transference mentioned their identity. The Urartu inscriptions specify also the Kualbani country in the Sevanlik region. The second part of this name is identified with the late name Alban. The first part is interpreted as Turku, meaning blood, fairy-haired. So consequently, Kualbani means fairy Albanians, and it confirms to the late information of the antique authors characterizing them as fair-haired. The name Arkukuni may be identified with the late name of Turk Arkugat, Argu ethnos, expressed in the toponymy of the southern region of the Sevan Lake. The name Etuiki is interesting. Both names designed with various ancient suffixes based upon Attic component. Probably it's either a common name or a geographical term. However, the Assyrian wedge-shaped inscriptions belonging to 8th century BC specify the name of the Utu tribe. Bearers of this ethnonym in southeast of the Urmia Lake rendered custodial and other service on the Assyrian side. The names Eti and Utu may be considered as various phonetic forms of the same ethnonym, probably formed of common noun. This region included to the zone of Turk ethnosis. Itu sections were sent to any town in extreme cases. They had own chieftains. Utu served in custody of aldermen, asking to Assyrian king the permission for it. They were sent against the enemies of Assyrian and acted as the part of subsidiary troops and were used in reconnaissance. One of the texts mentions the country Italia, the Italians' country. This country, located in the northern parts of Assyria, was Urartu. The military forces Itu were used in extreme situations. It gives an impression that this tribe aggregated fast-acting military divisions. On this background, the name of the Eti tribe attested behind the Arazar as well as Itu Syrian armies identified with the Turk word Iti, meaning zealous, rapid, sharp. Later, they were known in Azerbaijan as Uti, as well as Utigur and Utidors in Hun Turks unit. Thus, the ancient Turk ethnos is specified with Turk word Iti, turned into ethnonym anciently, inhabited in a spacious territory from the north of Mesopotamia till the region of the Azov Sea and the Danube River. Certainly, this unit contained also other ethnoses. In this connection, the doubts regarding identification of the name Etoina with the tribal name of the Caucasian language Udians named Udi against real basis. The name Urartu in the Babylonian form was specified as Urartu, and it could be read also as Urartu. According to the Babylonian phonetics, the combination is pronounced also as. However, it's not a Babylonian but a local phonetic phenomenon. The Turk languages have an appropriate phonetic modification. Possibly the phonetic modification of the name Urartu existed owing to the Proto-Turk language. So, some of the names of the Aridag Valley settlement and the Sevanlik region specified in the Urartu inscriptions, having modified parallels in the modern and former toponymies, and hereby the consequent settlements were inhabited by Azerbaijani Turks. Urartu Aduyamani in Azerbaijani and Adyama modified in the Ashiman 9th century. Urartu Adakunis Adaki in Arshak 12th century. Adaisu Adachai 9th century. The Middle Caucasus inhabited by Turk ethnosis. Urartu Urkukunis Arku 12th century. Zengazur Turk heteronyms of Arkugum Arkuluk 19th century. The Middle Caucasus Argubel in the Dagorgut Epos. Urartu Elaine and Azerbaijani region 9th century. The toponym in the Gacha region and the hydronym in the mountains Karabakh. Urartu Kulian in Azerbaijan, Gulijan in Alagos. Urartu Guriye is Azerbaijani Kurikan, Kuriyan, Kuyurt. 19th century, the toponyms in Zengazur. Urartu Kwarlini is Azerbaijani Kavar, modified in the Norbeyaza in the middle of the 9th century, the present Kamo. Urartu Pirua is Azerbaijani Pribartaz, Prijan, Pernuit, 19th century, Zengazur. Pirili near to Irevan in the beginning of the 9th century. Urartu Urtekina in Azerbaijani Urdakli, present Lishan, and Urartu Sultan Shatanawini and Azerbaijani's Shinatag Oronim and toponym in Gazor in 19th century, the inhabitants of which consisted of Azerbaijani people as well as in the previous cases. So judging by the component tag Turkey mountain and Tua metathesis of PF Turk Tower meaning mountain, both names are of Turkey region. The word Shana in Turk language means pitchfork, trident, and consequently the word Shanatau means trident mountain. This comparison and the toponymic parallels prove that the occupied regions of the Agridag and Sevan districts were anciently inhabited by Azerbaijani Turks, and generally Turk ethnocies storing the ancient toponyms as modified. So, in the beginning of the 6th century BC, the Urartu state stopped existing. The main essence Urartu was included into Median and later the Ahomanian, probably the rulers of the lands behind the Araz River, including the rulers of the mountains and plains of Agridag region. The former Uduri Etuyini nominally recognize the supreme power of the above-mentioned orbs, the Median culture, and precisely even the Azerbaijan Median culture where the Manan historical tradition predominated had a significant impact also on the regions behind the Araz River. It's not known from the sources how we did the inhabitants of the Agridag and other regions behind the Araz River to the Kop Detat and the Hamonian Orib committed by Bardigaumata 522 BC and Dari I 521 BC. But it's known that Bardigaumata released for 3 years the old people obeying the Hamanians from assessment and they mourned over his murder. There were also the Turk ethnocies of the empire among them, giving him the sobriquet Tanioksari in Turk language Taniokur, a man like Noxi. It's not occasional that upon his death, several countries including the Urartu region rioted against Dari I. The Babylonian version 2nd 2963 of the Bekhishtan inscription of Dari I 521-494 BC applies the term Urartu for indication of this region as well as Armenia and Armeniap in the ancient Persian and Elam versions 2nd 23-25. By the name Urartu it's specified in the Bible as Ararat, meaning not a mountain but a country. Thus instead of the Urartu term the Armenia one appeared for indicating the region and thus of the one lake in the last quarter of the 6th century. Both the name Armenia and Ararat are used in the early inscriptions as geographical meanings not concerning to the land in the north of the Araz River. The Bekhishtan inscription specifies one of those rioted in Babylon as Araka. A long variant is Araka. Kaltita's son, Araka, is an inhabitant of Armenia, Urartu, and apparently set out for supporting not only the social but also the religious policy of Bardigaumata. On this background, the leader of the variety probably was a religious person knowing all following of Kaldu, the Urartu god. Despite of the Aramea region offered for this name, Armenians did not have such names. The name may be identified with the ancient Turkic Araga, Rugwan meaning Saint Pius. The base of the name Armenia is the ethnonym Armen mentioned in the ancient sources and formed from common name. Previously all inhabitants of Armenia was very named such. Armenians could be the ancient Kurut, Kuman, Subars, Kutiyas, Turks, the ancient Turk inhabitant in the north of Mesopotamia. The name Armen from position of the Turk language is etymologized as red-haired and probably fair-haired. In ancient Turk language, Ar means red-haired and Man is a suffix from ethnic names. Probably the preliminary name Armen meant fair and red-haired ethnicities of this region, Kuman, Sabirs, Kutis, aggregating the ancient inhabitants of the region in the north of Mesopotamia, and only subsequently to strengthening of the alien cause, Armenians in turn took aim of them. So the ethnonym Armen formed from the ancient Turk common word meant all inhabitants of Armenia.